Welcome back, boss bitches, to another episode. I'm so excited to introduce Lindsey Head to you today. Her and I met several months ago at different speaking events that we've done together, and I have just grown to admire Lindsey so much, and I'm so excited to finally share her with all of you. So, Lindsey, thank you for being on the Boss Bitch Rising podcast, and if you would like to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I just adore you. I'm just so happy to have connected with you in my life, and I'm grateful to be here. And what you're doing in the world is inspiring, and just so happy. So thank you for having me. My name is Lindsey Head. I have been an award-winning CFO professionally for a number of years. I've since gone out on my own to start my own consulting practice, helping small business owners in the financial realm of their business. So helping businesses, small businesses, large businesses, scale and grow and set up their finances in a proper way that can help them kind of automate things and get things moving and allow their businesses to grow seamlessly. Personally, I'm a mother to 3 boys with 1 on the way. And, my husband and I, we both work full time. We're not like hanging out. We have all of our boys. And so I'm a boy mom and juggling all of that. And yeah, but I am very, very focused on business and the balance of being a mom and business and everything that comes with it.
You seriously just do it all. And that's what so inspires me is that, especially as women, we feel like we have to choose between the career, the marriage, the family, all the things. And you make it look so good. And it seems like you're just so successful in every single space in your life, with the kids, with the husband, with the businesses. And you truly are a compassionate leader. And you can feel that when I met you, I was just magnetically drawn to you. And the more that I've learned about you and just how much you do and how flawless you make it look, I'm just like, okay, what is Lindsey's secret sauce? I need to, kind of understand, like, what is the psychology? What's the emotion? What is the lifestyle backing this woman? Because she really is the do it all, be it all woman, and she makes it look flawless.
Thank you. It's not always that way, I promise. I'm very realistic, but thank you, Gail. There's a lot to it. I think in my life growing up through like my professional career, I was very kind of logistics operations focused. So it's like I knew one thing had to happen. I was always thinking of the next thing that had to be done and how was I going to get there? Because there's things that have to get done, whether it's in business and personal and your relationships. And it's not always about doing things, because I hate that sometimes where it's like, oh, I did this. It's not that checklist mentality, but it's constantly keeping the bigger picture in mind, right? So whether it's in my career, it's like, I want to be at this next level, thinking about all the things that go with getting there. And a lot of it is, knowing your worth and asking, for what you want and kind of laying out your game plan with whoever's in charge of giving you that title or whatever it may be, if you're in a professional career, right? But it's really looking at the end game constantly. And not always, I'm going to kill yourself over it, but it's like, you got to keep it in mind, so you can take those baby steps and forward progress. A mentor always told me, just don't stand still. And it's not like always be busy. It's just don't stand still with moving forward, because there may not always be a right decision or a wrong decision, or people get so heavy, I guess, or make it really heavy on making a decision. It's like, make a decision and move forward. And if that's not the right one, change course after that. Just don't stand still. What?
Use and move.
Use them. That's it. I love it.
And fail forward too, I think, is another statement I like to use, where it's like, paralysis by analysis is another one of those terms that we constantly hear, where so many people stay stuck and like, well, what's the right decision? I don't know. So I'm not going to move. I'm not going to do anything. And it's like really listening in and learning to trust yourself and kind of feeling into your intuition, which is something that I talk about a lot in a leadership sense, where sometimes the decision, we can't really see the bigger picture on the other end of the decision. We have no idea what's going to happen. But when we learn to regulate our nervous system and kind of chill out a little bit, tap into our intuition, feel into what's going on internally, and from that grounded, regulated place, we can actually choose and move quicker. And even if we fail, we're failing forward forward. So we're still moving, making progress, learning along the way.
Yes.
And yeah, I love that you mentioned thinking bigger picture, because that is like the number one trait that all high performers have, is they're able to think long-term, broad scale, and who we need a part of the team in order to make this happen, what logistically needs to happen in order for this to be executed. And it's very clear that you do a good job at that, because having 3 boys and 1 on the way, and you are the CFO of Curls Poppin, right?
There, yep, that's one of our businesses, correct?
One of, she says. What's the other business?
Financial consulting. So I do just independent consulting as a consulting CFO with entrepreneurs, business owners, and Curls Poppin is a business between my husband and I that we started on the side, and hoping to keep moving it forward. We are moving it forward. Yeah. Again, those baby steps.
I mean, and there are just so many moving parts to your life. And so that's where staying organized and having systems and strategies to keep you organized is really what keeps things moving streamlined and takes a lot of the stress off. Of course, life and business are going to be stressful, right? But when you have the systems in place, when you have that high level of communication, which I know you and your husband do have, when you have these systems in place, when you have these standards in place, things move a lot more smoothly. I would love to have you share with our listeners kind of like the dynamic between you and your husband and how the two of you make it work so well.
I love that. I love talking about my husband. He's an incredible, incredible man. We met at 33, so it was not any early, spring chickens here. And then we met and moved forward with our life pretty quickly after we met. We knew it was the right thing. But a lot of, even from the get-go, what I realized when I met him was, wow, we communicate the same. We operate the same. We kind of look at life similar. And when we got married and, we're starting our life together, it was really clear. So the dynamics between us are, we like to say, we started a term called boss parents. And we've lived into it. I don't think it was something that we were at the beginning. We never had any kids. We're like, boss parents. What does that mean? It means juggling professional and personal life as a boss, right? And that doesn't mean you're perfect. It means like, hey, we're going to tackle this. We're going to do it from a high level. We're going to do this together, hand in hand. So 100% on each part. So the way it works, I'd say with us, is we really notice what things need to get done. It goes to that big picture thing. It's so funny because we're kind of in sync. We wake up, things need to get done. 3 kids need to be fed. The 3 kids are under 5 years old, by the way. And the 4th one will be too. So we're gonna have 4 kids under the age of 5. So it gets a little wild in the mornings, but so we're constantly thinking of what needs to get done. So we know that the outcome, we got to get them out the door. We got to get them to school. We got to get them to daycare. We have to have them fed. We have to get blah, blah, blah. So all those things happen, but we pick up where the other left off, right? So there's a, how do you say it? Like a commitment between both of us that we recognize that if there's something that needs to be done, we're all in, right? Whether I got it done or he got it done, it doesn't matter. It's just that we know what has to be done. And that's the daily life for us. I mean, there's things that I forget that he jumps in and does, and then we're out the door. But that's with everything.
And I've heard you mention this before too, is like where, some days you're working at a high capacity, you're able to get a lot done. And then maybe he's not feeling too well, or maybe mentally not as clear as you on that day. And you're able to pick up the slack where he's not. And you guys just have this really nice flow back and forth between the two of you. And, that it takes observation, right? Really seeing, what points do I need to pick up? And then also communicating the needs, which is something that you mentioned earlier, is know your worth and ask for it. Yes. And some days your worth means I need a little bit of a break, babe. Can you pick up the slack? And if you've got the energy, you're like, of course I can. Even if you don't, I'm sure you're right there. Like, of course I can.
Yep. That is a constant thing. Yeah. When we hit a kind of a breaking point, which happens, we can notice it, and our energy is like, so one of our energy is lower than the other, especially being pregnant right now. There's more on my side where I'm like, oh, I just need to sit down and take a break. And he's there to step in and be with the boys and take care of some things extra, so that's exactly right. It's being aware and having an awareness.
I always teach, especially in a leadership sense, to be honest, to be open, to be self-aware, and then to be willing to adapt, learn, and improve along the way. And so those are kind of like the four main points that I'm constantly teaching on: honest, open, self-aware, and then the willingness to adapt and learn. And I feel like you guys totally embody that together as individuals, but then as a couple as well. And I know that your boys are going to be learning so much from the two boss parents that they have. I really admire both of you so much. I admire you specifically just being, on the Boss Bitch Rising podcast. You are truly a boss bitch, to say the least. And it's just so inspiring because as women, I feel like we feel pressured that we have to choose or fit into a box, or we feel pressured that we have to do it all, but how are we going to juggle it? And, of course, we can talk about how flawless you make it look, but what do you do to stay grounded on the days that you do feel like you're struggling? And what are some of your individual practices that you're able to do to restore yourself?
It's a great question. So I love working out. And so working out has always been kind of my like Zen place, like that reset. And that's physically, and emotionally also, it helps emotionally. It's funny. I sit in my car longer than I need to if I get to a place. I know there's a lot of moms and women or just people in general who do that. Like I'll get there. I'm like, I'm just not getting out. I need 10 minutes. And because if I don't, that's my quiet time.
I do that all the time. Like I almost always will do that when I get home, and I live by myself, right? I've got 2 cats. I'm coming home to that. But even then it's just like, there's something about that peace, that moment of peace before it's the transition period.
Yes.
Actually, Brendan Bouchard talks about that, where it's like, there's transitions in your life where, especially as such a high performer, go-getter, you've got a lot going on. And sometimes you're taking the energy of one thing into the energy of the next. And there's like this merger transition period where it's like this energy is merging into the last, or the energy that you're about to enter into, you're adopting it into what you're currently doing. And it's like, how do you find time and finding those break points where it's like sitting in your car for even a minute and just like breathing in, being completely present, maybe saying some affirmations is such a perfect break state. And we talk about this in NLP too, is a break state between periods in life where now you can restore your energy, ask yourself, what can I leave behind? What do I need now? Okay, let's take the now. And then, okay, how can I prepare for the next moment that I'm going to experience?
I love that. You're so right. Because it's the funny saying is you've crossed the threshold. Every time I walk into my house at the end of the day, my husband's like, you're checked in, you're clocking in again. I'm like, oh, so some days you're right. That break period, like you're saying, is so critical. So that's one of those moments where it's like, I just pause and kind of just take a deep breath. And I'm like, all right, on to the next thing. And that's okay. And it just helps.
Is there one particular thing that you find yourself doing, whether, some people find relaxation in just nothing, right? Put the phone down, turn the music off. I am just zoned out. Other people might need to scroll for 2 minutes. Some people need to blast their favorite song, right? What is your little thing? Do you have one?
Usually it's the silence. Like I'll turn the music off in the car, or I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay. And I'll have the thoughts or whatever. And that's usually it. It's like silence, because most of the day it's not silent. And at night it's not silent until the kids go to bed. So when the kids go to sleep, my husband and I really just have a like downtime, and then we do some scrolling. We're all like on social media. I haven't been on social media all day. I'm like, oh, let's just see what's going on in the world, or, just connect. Because that's our time. And we've given so much to the world throughout the day, and jobs and business. And then it's like, okay, the break time is when those kids go to sleep. And now we have our hour and a half or whatever it may be to kind of just be quiet. Yeah.
So. And it's wonderful that you two can just be quiet together too. There's so much going on that I think having that peace with your partner and being able to just not even have to say or do anything together, just be there, is such a beautiful thing to find with somebody.
Yeah.
It's truly is.
And often we'll go, like, we have a backyard. So sometimes we'll take the kids out back and they'll be able to kind of entertain themselves. And my husband loves gardening. We have chickens, and I'll just literally sit on the deck and just watch them. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't need anything else. I'm going to watch. I don't need to be running around. I can just kind of sit here. I'm also pregnant, so I'm not running circles around the kids right now as much as they want. But, it's just that time, that break, and like focusing on what's important.
Amazing. Well, I am curious to hear about the journey of you and your husband building Curls Poppin together.
So that has been some years in the making. It's very funny. So if you know my husband, he has extremely curly hair. Years ago, he was a hair model. They found him. He does not work as a hair model. He works in clinical research, which is trials for cancer. So he leads research for drugs that are coming to market. Yeah, but years ago on the streets of New York, he was discovered for his hair. These founders of a company said, "Hey, what do you use on your hair?" And they got in the conversation. He became their first male hair model. So his hair was so beautiful and curly and awesome. And so, a little while back, we were like, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just make something up ourselves? I said, I looked at him, I said, the secret sauce of what needs to be in it. You're a chemist. I can help with the business side of things. Let's just see what happens. So we developed the products, we developed the tools, and we got our first large purchase order last year with Followed Education, which is one of the biggest college bookstore operators in the world or in the country.
Congratulations.
So it's like we're in some stores. We got a great buyer. It's just working out the details, getting samples in hands. I mean, there's a lot that goes with it that we're learning and like putting effort into on the daily, which is the marketing piece and all the steps, as a business owner that you have to do. So it's like running the business, launching the business. And now it's like, how do you, turn that machine into something that's going to be working passively, right, for us with the right team.
Absolutely.
So, but we're there. I mean, it's great. We developed product and designs, everything. So start to finish. And then on a separate note, we also started Curls Poppin dolls. I don't know if you know this, Kale. So it is curlspoppindolls.com and curlspoppin.com. So two different websites. But the dolls were really designed to recognize little girls, right, with their curly hair. It wasn't really out there because a lot of our friends are like, yeah, we never have had a doll that looks like me or has the same hair texture as me and things like that. So we got this idea to have 5 different hair types, curly hair types, and those are also in the stores.
I love that.
Yeah, so we're working on a couple different things, but what's important is having people, be able to be seen for who they are and, with their hair too. I mean, my husband slicked his hair back forever for being in a profession, but then he wears it out and everyone's like, oh, your hair's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, why is it like that? Why is it even a big deal?
Yeah, it is crazy the different stigmas that have been placed on people's natural appearances.
Yeah.
And how now we're stepping into a space where people are just so celebrated for being who they are. And there's leaders like you coming out with, the Curls Poppin dolls to really honor the individuals and their differences. And I love that you have 5 different hair types, which is something that's also not talked about. I just learned one of my best friends has very, very curly hair, and she was explaining the different hair type.
Yes. Curl types, curl patterns.
Yeah, curl patterns. And I was like, okay, I'm 30 years old. How come I've never heard of this? And she's like, I don't know. I guess people just don't really talk about it.
Yep.
And so she totally broke it down, got out a chart, and we were like studying all the curl patterns. And I was just like, this is new for me. And I never had to even think about this. And I'm glad that she was able to introduce it to me. And I'm so just excited to now share these dolls with everyone who I know who has curly hair. And when they have children, gift them a doll. This is amazing. But I am curious, like, what is the biggest challenge, especially with your partner, developing a business? Like, how do you turn off the business mind from the rest of your life, or do you?
That's a good question. What's great is that we both love talking about business, which is hard to find in a partner. And if that's your mindset, right, we're both focused on that. But we intentionally turn it off. Like there was nights that we would put the kids down and from 8 to midnight was our working time. But during that working time, it's like we were laughing, we were talking about other things, but we were also doing work that needed to get done. My husband and I are really good at saying, we come first. I know that may sound bad, right? The kids always come first, but in terms of survival, we keep them alive. They're happy, all that stuff. But we also remember that we have to be an example for them of a healthy marriage and healthy partnership that we have. And so we are really consistent at saying, hey, we need to get away. So we'll book a vacation. We'll get family to come watch the kids. And we'll get that time away that's really intentional. But when we're working at home, it was 8 to 12 is our night. And then there's nights we're like, we're not going to do any work. We're just going to chill out and not focus on the business, not talk about it. Cause there are some intensive weeks where it is a lot of the conversation and you can just sense the other, like, okay, I have other things we're focusing on right now. And it's just a vibe, and it's the awareness of being like, okay, we're not doing that today. And it's okay. Or we have to remind each other, hey, I need you to do that. And it works well. I think we're just really easygoing in a sense of not like pushing each other, but knowing that we have to get things done. So it's a work in progress and it's constant, but there is an intentional turnoff when we leave and go on vacation or go take a break and go on date nights. And we really do schedule those.
Yes, I think that's so important. I mean, not even being business partners, just being in any relationship, having that intentional connection time where you turn the rest of the world off and it's just focused on the two of you being in whatever you're doing. It could just be hanging out at home, binge watching Netflix, and then turning the Netflix off to talk about the show. Like, what did you like? What did I like? What parts were confusing or whatever, right? Like really creating connection. And I think in business and relationships, there's a lot of things that go hand in hand. We're operating from an intuitive space where most people don't really feel connected to their intuition. They're more ego-based. And there's a stigma around ego, bad stigma, where we all have an ego and it's essentially just our fear system that's trying to keep us protected. And so it's based on past experience or knowledge, and it's a structure that we operate throughout our day on a subconscious level. So when we can start to become aware of those operating systems and then get more connected in, whether it's with our partner or our business and the inner workings of it, and feel into that, I feel like that creates deeper connection. And that's where you can kind of pick up the slack or foresee things in the future that need to be taken care of. But then also you mentioned here, like not taking anything personally. And especially in business and in relationships, learning to just not take things personally will remove a lot of the challenging dynamics that our ego places there because we're taking things personally. And
so true.
Yes. And I think it's beautiful that your relationship with your husband and how that overflows into your relationship with your children and how you're leading them as boss parents is also so cohesive with like how you're showing up in your business life too. And many people feel like we have to completely separate these two aspects of ourselves or versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I love that you authentically bring in both pieces of your life together into the other aspects or other areas. And again, you just make it look so flawless, so good. But I think it's because you've really like tapped into some really specific things and do them very well, where you're really good at observing and just like taking the logistics aspect of taking the responsibility of like, okay, let's make this happen next. Delegating, right? If you're not able to. And then communication, right?
Yes. You're right. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's constant. It's great. And it is that. It's a lot of the just being aware, I have to say, and just, taking the responsibility. That's a key word because we are both equally responsible for our life, for how this goes, for what we're creating. And we're constantly talking about the future. We created these beautiful kids because we're going to have a really busy retirement one day, or we're going to have a lot to do in the future. And we joke about that. We're like, we're not going to be bored. We're going to be traveling all over in 5 different boys and their families. And that's what we want. And, we're going to have a business that's going to be thriving and, paying us passively, but that's going to be in a lot of stores and people are going to know about it. So we're constantly talking about what's possible and what we're creating. So it is always top of mind. And it's fun. I mean, my husband's the most intuitive, intuitively, he follows all of that. He has the best gut feeling and follows it that I've ever seen out of anybody. And so it's always an inspiration when we're speaking, that we're always talking and it's like, wow, he's dialed in and he always follows that. And like, that doesn't happen naturally for many people.
Yeah, that's so true. What would you say is maybe the one thing that stood out to you most when you met your husband? And you just kind of knew that was your man.
I almost couldn't believe how optimistic he was just about life. And when I met some of his friends, they said, no, he's the real deal. You'll never meet anybody like him. And it was true, right? When you first meet someone, you're kind of like, is this real? Are you sure? You have questions. And it was like, no, every bit of his life and his story is real and authentic, and the battles and the circumstances he overcame, and like truly an inspiration. And that to me was like, wow, there are no excuses in this world of what someone can accomplish. Yeah. And I was so inspired by him when I met him and it's been that way ever since.
I love it. I love it. And I'm so inspired by you. So now I hope to have, both of you two on talking about the dynamic of your relationship and your business and your life together, because you truly, truly, truly have something special about you. And I could just tell, like, from the instant I met you, you have this shining light within. And then getting to know you even more over the last several months, I'm just like, who is this woman? Where did she come from? How is she so just high performing in so many ways? Do you get exhausted?
Yeah. Yes. It's so funny. We started going to track meets for my youngest. I'm like, well, of course I'm pregnant right now, so that does not help the exhaustion. It just is like hyper overinflated right now. But yes, absolutely. It's funny because we go through the week and I think I don't go to sleep that early. It's 11, 12. And like Fridays, it's like 10. I'm like, wow, is that telling? Like you go through the week and you're like, wow, we must have been, on a good, just a lot going on. And so you're most tired by Friday nights, which is funny, which is when I want the most energy, unfortunately. Yeah. So there's a lot of that, I'm navigating and figuring out, but there definitely are times of being tired that I just have to tell myself, listen to my body. I need to go to sleep, or I need to take a nap, or I need to rest. And yes, I do, but I do push through very well. And I've known this about myself. My mom has been an example too. I mean, I tell her all the time, you need to rest, but I don't know where she finds the energy. And I've seen that my whole life, whether that's the best model, but I've seen it. And so I've always known it's possible. Like acknowledge you're tired, but pushing through.
I mean, in a sense, like I'm kind of the same way, where I know I'm tired and I'm just like, I need a break. I just need a break. But for me, it's hard for me to rest and relax if the thing isn't finished.
Same.
And, a lot of my listeners know that I've been in this process of getting my accreditations for the Certification Academy. And it's taken way longer than I initially expected it to, like months longer than I initially expected it to, which just caused frustration. And there's been setbacks and lots of things, right? Yep. And I'm honestly exhausted. I'm like, I just want it to be finished. I was expecting it to be done months ago. So this is like really starting to spread me thin.
Yes.
But I feel like even if I took a vacation right now, even if it was 1 or 2 days, I wouldn't be able to shut my brain off or the systems within me to know how to actually relax in that moment, because I know that there's this big thing left so unfinished. And so I totally get that.
I can so relate. I almost feel more relaxed pushing through to get it done and knowing I just pushed myself to the end just to have it off my plate.
Yeah.
And I do tend to do that. So I can definitely relate to how you're feeling. Like, I just want to push, but get it through, done. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a gift.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't have, to be able to do that. But at the same time, I try to remind myself about being aware of my own feelings. And if I speak to certain people who are really good at that, I became even more aware. I'm like, oh, I should just relax, and just like try to mentally put myself at ease so I can let my system shut down and then be better at tackling that same project tomorrow or things like that.
Absolutely.
But it's a work in progress. It's a default way of being that I've been my whole life.
Say that again.
It's been like a default way of being like my whole life, of just like power through, right? Which I don't love that, because you see the sayings like, let's not glamorize this like overworking to try and get things done. And I agree. And we all have it in us to make that shift. And it's just a work in progress. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I would also say that each individual is different. So some people are really able to work I would call them a long load of things, right? And other people have like short spurts where they can get a lot done and then they have to rest, and then a lot done and have to rest. If you're familiar with like human design, that can kind of help you understand that a little bit more. But even then, I feel that we have cycles, just a natural cycle in our life, and observing those cycles of like, for me, I know that I can do a lot of work in 3 weeks. Like I can work myself 60, 70 hours in 3 weeks, every week for 3 weeks. And that feels good for 3 weeks. And then I'd have to take a full week off, like no work or very, very, very light work, like 2 hours a day, maybe.
Yes.
And so I know those cycles where I'm working really intensely and then I have to take a break. And that kind of feels good for me to do that, actually, because I feel like I get a lot done. But I feel like I've been doing that for months now. So like
the cycles, right? The cycle.
Yeah. What are some things that help you kind of find the little break state within, aside from sitting in your car, right? And just having that chill moment? Are there things like meditation, or I know you mentioned exercise. Are there any other things that you're able to do that maybe take just a minute or two that help reground you?
You know what, at night, I was getting into a good practice of obviously kind of writing down and getting it off my mind of the things I had to tackle the next day. And that has been really helpful, because it's like, it just puts some structure around it a bit more than kind of just closing my eyes and trying to go to sleep, where I have that list in my head of like, oh, what is it that I'm going to tackle tomorrow and how am I going to do it? So doing the list kind of before I actually go to sleep has been a big one. And then, yeah, because there's a lot of lists right now. I got a couple different lists going, professional, personal, kids, what do they need? Yeah, so that is helpful. Definitely.
I am the list master. I've got lots of lists all around me right now, but that's good. Like doing a mind dump before bed. That way, especially if you have trouble falling asleep, getting it all out, getting it organized. And I feel like, that's part of your strong suits is organization, and being a high performer, you have to be organized in order to perform at that higher level. So I think that's a great tip for anyone who's especially struggling to fall asleep and they have all of these things going around. Spend 5 minutes before bed journaling it out, even if it's just like chaotic thoughts and you don't have a clear direction of where they're going. Mind dumping it, that way it's out of your head, you've said what you needed to say, and then maybe putting on some really light music to just relax you into sleep.
I need to get back to, we were using like going to sleep meditative music, and it was amazing. We were a little crazy. So we did a home renovation while I was like 9 months pregnant with my last child. We moved in the night before we had the baby. Before all that was happening, and moving like 4 different times in the Airbnbs while that was happening. Wow. It was insane, but like we were doing really good at like putting that music on and relaxing. So that's something that I think I should get back to, because it was nice. It was a good thing. Like you're saying, it was like the mind dump and then music. And it was like, oh, it was like decompress, and it was great.
Yeah, something that I do almost every single night is I switch between like an alpha brainwave meditation music kind of thing, which is really just supposed to open your brain up or expand your, like, essentially your thought process or thought capacity. So studies have said that alpha brainwaves actually create a deeper connection with intuition. And there's been so many different studies through hypnosis and just NLP and these types of subconscious mindset studies that look at people who are constantly in alpha brainwave states. Almost, and I know this is going to put a lot of listeners off right now, but almost put people into like a telepathic type of brain state, where studies have been shown that people who have trouble test taking, if they fall asleep listening to alpha state brainwave music, will actually become better test takers. But there's also several studies where certain individuals have been asked questions before the questioner asks the question. The individual being asked questions knows what question is going to come next.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's like random questions, like what color is the socks that you're wearing today? What color is the sky? What street do you live on? Those types of things. And so I've been kind of experimenting with that. I love subconscious mindset hacks because it's like things that you can do that you don't have to be doing anything, right? If there's hypnosis playing in the background while I'm sleeping, I'm relaxing and doing nothing while my mind is absorbing these things. So alpha brainwave states and hypnosis, sleep hypnosis, are two things that I try and do almost every single night.
I love that.
And I feel like that helps just keep me kind of clear-minded and in that high performance state throughout the day, since I have to be in this space right now.
Right.
And yeah, it sounds like you've got that nailed down as well.
Constant work in progress, but yes, thank you for that. I love what you're sharing, because it's even more of something that I can look into, that can help
Yes. Well, before we end our episode today, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that they can start to implement into their daily routine or into their business that's going to help them, break past where they're at now, getting to them to that next level?
There's a couple things. Being a financial professional, like for my life and career, I've found that finances for a lot of business owners, so if you're in a bit, running your business is a big block for a lot of people and a hurdle. That's something that is always on your to-do list, things that you have to get done, right? And it's such a big part of your decision-making, growing a business, that I would encourage anybody who is an entrepreneur running a business to really ensure that they've got the financial systems and their kind of, financial, like say it's your system, it's your money system, right? And working and automating and kind of planning for whatever scenarios, having that set up and that you feel really confident and empowered by it. That's something, that I see that there's a big block. So people don't always face that. You're like, oh, I'll get to it later, but it really should be, I'll get to it now and then I'll do everything else later, because you need those details to really set yourself up for success. That's coming from my financial background.
That's a good one. I actually was just having this conversation yesterday with a client, and we were talking about like, what are you doing with the money that your business is making? And she's like, what do you mean? What am I doing with it? And I'm like, where does it go? Do you pay yourself? Like, how are you moving this money around? And I feel like that's one of the things that, isn't necessarily in my wheelhouse. So I'm glad that you mentioned this, because this is definitely something that I see, especially with a lot of new entrepreneurs. Like, they're shooting in a barrel. They don't know what they're doing. And especially with the financial aspect of their business, like, what would be the first place to start? Would you have any, first steps in helping a new entrepreneur get organized with their financial systems?
I would always backwards engineer it, right? You know what you need to live on. How is your business going to pay for your life and everything that you want? So maybe I need this right now, but I want this at some point. And so it's like your needs are exactly, you have to be making that much money to have your needs met. So kind of backwards engineering it, knowing your numbers, knowing what you have to make on a monthly basis and by when. And the by when's key, right? People say, I need 20,000 a month, or I need 10,000 a month, but then their bills all hit on the 5th of the month. So that doesn't really work necessarily, right? So by when, it'll motivate you to actually invoice your clients and get on a different payment plan, however that works, whether you're invoicing them, regularly, all that stuff. So I think reverse engineering a bit of what your needs are and then what your wants are and by when is key. Writing it out, doing your spreadsheet, Google Sheets, whatever it is, your notes, it doesn't matter, but really thinking about what are your obligations as a person, right? You've got rent, you've got a car, you've got this, and gas is going through the roof. And like all these things need to be kind of planned for, and with a cushion. Mm-hmm. Building that cushion, building a savings, and then figuring out like, how are you paying yourselves for the most advantageous tax situation? Because a lot of people, you can plan for taxes. It's not a surprise. There's a calculation, right? And I found that people I work with, that's the biggest surprise. Like it comes tax time, like I had no idea. And I'm like, okay, let's back into that. So why did you not think you had any idea? It really is a calculation. How is your business set up? Are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp? LLC treated as an S Corp, all that stuff. Are you paying yourself a salary? Are you not? Do you have a SEP IRA? Do you not? Depending on your situation, there's ways that you can shelter so much in taxes properly that benefit you as a business owner. So where do they start? I guess, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I love talking about that stuff, but and then also like the worksheets and a budget and those types of things. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with. I get it. Like, even if you have a budget, you're not going to look at it every month. There's no way. So you have to create a money system that builds in all the factors that is on automated. Yeah. You have to automate it. It's like, so you don't have to think about it. So the goal is get the financial piece of your business so automated that you don't have to think about it and just know that you have to make X dollars and that's it.
Yeah, no, I really do love that. I love that you basically mentioned chunking down, which is with any goal, any big thing that we're trying to accomplish. Look at the bigger picture. This is the first thing you mentioned in today's episode. Look at the bigger picture and then work your way backward engineer it and chunk down everything to what do I need to get done today, or what is the most important that needs to get done first. And working your way up from that. And I love that you mentioned automations because that takes the thought out of it. I will kind of preface that with I've worked with somebody who had things on automation and they weren't still keeping tabs on things. And so it was like out of sight, out of mind. And they got really behind on things, some like a card changed and whatever else. So something that I do, even though I do have automations in place, is I have a calendar sitting right next to my desk. And I literally write down the big expenses that I need to hit every single month. And I write on the calendar the date that certain things are hitting.
Yes.
So that way, the day or a few days before, I can go in and check my accounts, make sure that I, one, have all the money there, which it should be in there.
Yep.
If it's not, who do I need to follow up with to see why I don't have this money yet? Then two, making sure that it's flowing into whatever account or whatever it's going into, paying whoever it needs to pay. And I'm still on top of it, which I think is part of still keeping a healthy mindset with your finances. Is don't make it be a passive relationship. No. Still be accountable, still communicate right within the relationship where you are checking in regularly, and do that by just scheduling a reminder in your calendar.
I love that. You are so right. So yes, automate to an extent, but always stay connected, truly. And you should be reviewing recommendation monthly. And if you want to go quarterly, it depends on your business, on your actual financials. You should know what your profits are. You should know what your balance sheet looks like in your income statement, and be planning for the tax piece of it as well, and being in the conversations around it. So yes, doesn't have to be forefront, but I love that you put that on your calendar because it's true. It's an interactive relationship. You can do a lot on on passive, but you have to be connected and know your numbers.
Yeah. And I'll also mention this, like a couple years ago, my tax situation was a hot ass mess. Like, whew, it was bad. It was like throughout the year, I'm keeping receipts, I'm downloading these invoices, I'm doing all these things. And then like the 2 days before I'm supposed to get my taxes done, I'm spending 5 hours getting everything organized. And I'm like, this is a headache. I hate doing this. I hated when tax season came around. So a couple of years ago, I hired a bookkeeper. Yep. But even with my bookkeeper, every single month at the end of the month, I go in and I look at the spreadsheet of my income and my expenses. I see where things are going. I understand the pulse of my business. So what aspects of my business made money, what aspects lost money, what aspects aren't evening out correctly, right? Like if I'm losing more money, but I'm not making very much money, how can I trim the fat, or what do I need to do in order to make the scale tip the other way? And so even with having a bookkeeper, even with having the automations, like still checking in so that you are well aware of what is working well and what is not. And that's going to help you achieve success a lot more quickly. Of course, there's probably still lots of things that I can do to improve.
You're doing it though. That's the biggest thing. I think people just wait, and you can do all the daily, monthly, everything. But the big conversation is what is the impact on me when tax season comes? Yes. And that can actually be handled way before tax time. Like you can have a plan, and there's things you can do before the end of the year. And I think that's just the education piece on, staying in tune with your numbers, and then saying, wow, I'm showing a massive profit. How as a business owner, can I do something about this? And it's not like, oh, you want to show a loss. There's a strategy for everything. Some people want to show a loss. Some people want to break even. Some people want to show a huge profit. And what does that mean? I mean, there's a lot of things around that I just encourage business owners to, educate themselves on and say, oh gosh, I didn't know I had choices. I didn't know it was this magical thing that I actually could control a little bit. I mean, you can control most of it. So
yes. And that's where I think especially the tax system here in the US has really been built to favor business owners in so many ways. And so, especially as a business owner, if you're not staying on top of your taxes, your bookkeeping, and your accounting, girlfriend, get it together.
Yeah. You can do a ton of things, and it's only going to benefit you if you're on top of it. So that's the biggest advice I can give.
Yes, I think we absolutely need to bring you back on for a conversation specifically centered around business finances, because I know this will enlighten a lot of our listeners to things that they're maybe not even considering at the moment. So we'll definitely have to schedule that for sometime in the very near future, because I think this is a really good conversation for us to have that's going to really add value to so many people's lives.
I love it. I would be happy to.
Perfect. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for being with us today. I am just so honored for you to be here, taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us some hot fire like you always do.
Thank you. Thank you. You're amazing. I am so grateful. And yeah, I'm just thank you for having me.
Until next time.
Thank you.